Anahaganissingas, Anabechu, Nabimiya Dachinam. Welcome back, everyone, to Rising Warriors Rachael Kulei. I have my beautiful sister, Stephanie Big Eagle, back with me today. And today we are going to be talking about traditional tattoos. And so, being that she's a traditional handpoke tattoo artist, and also my tattoo artist as well, I we've been actually wanting to share and talk about our stories, if you want to say, and things that we have learned, traditions that's been handed down to her, and things, and talk about the traditional side of tattoos. I think this is a really important thing right now to finally talk about now that there's more awareness of uh, Indigenous tattoos and the ceremonies, and I'm seeing a lot more people speaking up and sharing their voices about, tattoos, and even like those with the face tattoos and the symbolisms behind those. And people don't really understand the markings and those meanings behind those. Um, and so I wanted to bring Stephanie on today to help educate and talk about, different ceremonies, different healings, and different things that happen, protocols, even if you want to say, for certain tattoos and things. So I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie. Go ahead and reintroduce yourself for those that don't know you, and we'll get started.
All right. So hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Big Eagle, and I'm from Yankton Sioux tribe, as well as, several other tribes. But my grandmother is at the Yankton Sioux Reservation. And so part of me discovering and reconnecting with my own identity was through the tattoos. So there's been a lot of hidden, undercover, or also just forgotten history in our tribe in particular with the tattoos. The Lakota, Dakota, Nakota people, we've been very disconnected from our traditions by design. And a lot of First Nations, Indigenous people have been by design. And I always had an inclination towards the traditional tattoo culture. I just never knew where that really came from, and why my spirit was always pushing me as I came more into discovering more about who I was and my identity, because I was disconnected from that the entire time I was growing up. So I had to come back to that and be brought back to that. And one of the major ways that I was brought back to that was through receiving my markings. So in our tribe, traditional markings, although we don't have a lot of evidence of them. We don't have a lot of the designs that were placed back in the day. A lot of the history has been erased, especially through the boarding school era. But I've met with several elders, and I've met with people from other tribes too. And so in our tribe in particular, the women would have markings on the eyes here, dots or lines that would signify. It was identification marks, as well as marking whether someone is a ceremonial person, or things that they have done in their lifetimes, achievements, so those sorts of things are honor markings. There would also be dots that would go along the temple here, and perhaps a simple line or two down the chin, particularly for women. So one of the elders that I just recently spoke with, and although I felt this, but I didn't ever have anyone actually say it from our nation. So she's Dakota and Lakota. And what she told me is that our markings help our ancestors recognize us when we pass over into the spirit world. And so that's why our markings were so important and so powerful and so necessary, because it was part of the process of preparing us for the afterlife, for the afterworld, for our journey beyond this world. So what we did in this lifetime, in the ceremonies that we held here, helped our ancestors to recognize us. So when you think about that, the markings are so much more than just skin deep. Or is that right? I'm a little backwards.
Yeah.
But there's so much more than just us on the surface level. There's something that happens when you go in and you have that intention that you place with the marking, and you allow, you call in the ancestors, you hold that prayer in that sacred space and that intention, and you place those markings for the purpose of empowering yourself and your spirit and connecting with your identity and your ancestors, and being able to it's an honor for me to now be able to be a part of that process of helping not only myself remember, but honoring our ancestors in that process that has been with us for who knows how long we've been tattooing. And the recent break that we've had in it over the last couple generations, where by design, through colonization and through the boarding school eras and things where they intentionally tried to take that tradition away from us. It's so powerful that it's coming back to us. And that's really, really inspiring for me to be seeing so many First Nations and Indigenous peoples around the world reclaiming something that's such an essential part of who we are.
I love seeing it too, because like I was telling you earlier, with mine, um, so there was several different things that happened with me. So the first set of markings that I had, they were actually my babies that I miscarried. And so I have these bear tracks along with my bear tracks that walk up my back. And what was interesting for me was that I got really depressed at that time, and I was like suicidal during that time, and I had no will to live whatsoever. And then my cancer, I was down in stage 4 cancer, and I used to self-harm. I used to like cut myself and like inflict pain on myself. And during this time, as a ceremonial person, you know, I started looking at things, and as a sun dancer, and I was like, I can't be going back into these abusive ways of what I used to do. And I just kept praying and praying, and I'm like, what do I do to relieve this pain? Because it is so deep that I literally want to inflict pain on myself so that it takes the pain away. And so I kept praying, you know, what do I do? How do I relieve this pain? And what's a ceremony that I go and do? And then that's when I was shown the tattoo ceremony. And in that sense, for relieving that pain and going through that pain, but the healing process, and knowing that the symbolism of those bears, those babies, you know, that they're always on me, they're always with me. It's my reminder when things get tough and I miss my babies and I want children. It's my reminder that in my walk every single day, that they're with me, that even though they're not physically here with me on the physical realm, on the spiritual realm, they're with me, and they're watching everything that I do. They're still learning from me. They're you know, so I'm still being an example, I'm still being a mother to them, but through a spiritual realm. And so I ended up, you know, having those bears put on me. And then I have these you can cut, wait for the here, my babies. I have 3 because I had triplets. And so it has all my names on the eagle feathers. But when I saw it in my dream, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go put my babies on my arm and this is what it's going to be. It was, I actually kept seeing these dreams and getting shown what it was. And it actually took about 25 times of drawing it over until it looked exactly what it looked like in my dream, because I kept seeing it and I'm like, nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. That's not what I saw. And I kept, you know, designing that the eagle feathers until I got to that point. And there's little hearts in each one. And before I lost my babies, I got to actually hear their heartbeats on an old ultrasound, the sound box. And so I actually got to hear their heartbeats for the first and last time before I lost them. And so when I was actually getting these little heartbeats put on each one of the feathers next to their name, I kid you not, I heard their heartbeats. I could hear the heartbeat as if I had just heard the ultrasound. And I could, the moment that he started tattooing the first little dot of the heart, I started hearing that heartbeat. And then until he finished that whole little heart, it would stop. And then he would go to the next one. And then I would hear that heartbeat start. And then until he finished that heart, then the heartbeat would stop. And it did that for all three of them. And that was another reminder on my arm to look down to that they're always, there with me. And so it ended up, that ceremony ended up being like a healing ceremony of pain through the tattoo for me, and a remembrance. And I have my family and my grandma's name on here, and that's also that resemblance, to always keep strong and to stay strong. So I have my family name, my Neiman, on my wrist, and so every time I look down on that, that reminds me to keep strong. That's who my family is. That's where I come from. And then as time progressed, then I was told that my name needed to be put on here, and then Dama Uppa Usende, which is Creator Bless Me. But at the same time, I was told and shown that just those words, just by walking down the street and someone seeing that they'll be blessed. And
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't just, like, oh, I'm putting this on me they're wanting me this on me to bless me. It's more, yes, me, but it's more about those who see my arm, those who go in passing, that even without me saying it, the intention and that thought, when you see that and you read that, you're blessing yourself. And so that was that blessing. Then they told me to put my name, Nabe Mia Dachin, up on my arm. And my ancestors said, you put your name there, and that's the symbolism that shows who you are. And like you were just saying, you just confirmed what they said to me on these markings that we're giving you is so that we know who you are, so that when you travel on the next life, that your lineage, your ancestors, that royalties, that's with you, it's carried with you, and we'll know who you are. Then they said these markings that are on my forearm here, if you were to go back in time, they showed that it would symbolize, like you were saying, showing who I am as a woman, as um my place in the community, and in my role and how I help. It shows, that medicine that I walk with, that comes from my family. It shows the warriors that come in my family line. And so there's these markings that I was shown. And again, it took time to see what was in my mind, and then actually like put it down on paper until it's exactly what it is, because it's not my marking, it's being handed down to me through ancestors, and it was lost. And so they kept telling me over time that these are the markings. And if you were to run into something, or like maybe like an old warrior bundle or something, the markings on there would identify who you are, so you'd be able to see that missing um uh thing, that artifact, as people say nowadays, but our bundles, you would be able to identify and see those markings on there and go, okay, yeah, no, that comes from my family. Like, here's the proof right here. Like, this is here. And what's interesting and beautiful is that I witnessed that just a couple weeks ago, with one of my friends, that she ended up, this warrior bundle ended up traveling to her, ended up traveling back to me. And when I was visiting with her, I heard my grandfather saying, look at that marking, look at your arm, look at that marking, look at your arm. And he kept pointing out all these different markings and showing my arm. And he's like, this right here is proof of what we've been telling you, that this is yours and that this belongs to you, and you're the carrier for this, and the carrier for the family. And that these markings is almost like that proof, that identification, verification, that I can, that belongs with me to carry, and things like that. So I thought that was, it was beautiful on that aspect, because I got to witness the healing aspect of those tattoos and the ceremonies for my family. and healing that trauma, and then going to the other side of being marked with the lineage and who I am. So and like just like what you were saying, having that connection, the ancestors being able to say, oh, there's my granddaughter, there she is right there, like if there's the markings, there's no trickster that can come in play, if you want to say.
Yeah, and that
So
so that would lead me to another place where why it's important to not take markings that maybe you see on the old time photos from other tribes or other people that you aren't sure what the markings are because they're not for you. So
mhm.
that's like I've that's been an issue that I've noticed with some people. They'll say that, wow, that person is wearing our tribe's markings on their arm as a tattoo, and they go up and
Yeah,
they'll talk to him and say, are you of this nation? And they said no, and they don't even know what it is, but they're wearing that tribe's markings. It's like
yeah.
I don't know how that would work in the spirit world. I have no idea, but how would they, how would that work when you cross over? How would that? But it's disrespectful, at least in this plane. It's disrespectful, but it's disrespectful to that person, their own self, most of all, because part of our journey on this path is to, um, for all of us, reconnection to who we truly are and
Mhm.
our roots and our ancestors. So that's something that I always want to bring up, is to make sure that you know where your designs are coming from. Make sure if you want to work with an artist, get original designs placed for you or designs that come from your nation specifically. So I usually do that with my work, to make sure that it's unique for that purpose.
Mhm.
Um, but also I wanted to go into a little bit more, like there's some exceptions to that, like this design, the
Right.
created, the Standing Rock tattoo.
Or
Yeah, there you
the
go.
other, I have the other one.
Yeah, that one was designed by Arthur Soul.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, Arthur Soul. Someone else kind of claims it, but it's Arthur Soul's
Yeah, Arthur
design.
Soul. Yeah.
Yeah. And but the purpose of these is to bring people together. And so that's another kind of acknowledgement marking where these people either supported, so in this case, it's anybody who has this supported the protection of the water and the protection of the earth's resources, and particularly at Standing Rock, but it doesn't just apply to Standing Rock, but
Mhm.
and it was the intention that was placed in this prayer. That dot is supposed to be centered, but it's the intention behind it that's the most important part of it for me. So the part of this prayer was, bringing in the honoring the thunderbird, who is the bringer of the rains and the water, and the seven dots represent the seven bands of the um, seven council fires of the Great Sioux Nation, honoring the land upon
Mhm.
where that took place at Standing Rock, and the leaders and the women from those tribes who stood up and said, come to our land, help us stand against this destruction of the earth and the resources that's going on here. And then this represented all of the people coming together. This is the meeting house here, the teepee, all the women honoring, the lineage keepers and all that. So it's all about the meaning. So for Indigenous peoples across the board, it's all about the meaning behind the markings, that sends a message. And also in this case, so with this and the marking that you have on your arm,
Mhm.
it's about bringing people together through that common thing that we're all standing for and that we all committed ourselves to. So a responsibility that we all stood up and accepted. So in that case, I would say, yes, get this, for when it's created for that intention, for of a bunch of people coming together for one common purpose. And that's a good thing
Mhm.
for it to stand for. But there's another thing that I had a dream about this design in particular, because I created it as a protection marking.
Mhm.
So I wanted that I was asking, we are asking the Thunderbird to watch over us and protect us in our work that we're doing
Mhm.
as protectors, as warriors, guardians of the earth and her resources. So it's a protection marking. So that in this dream that I had, I drove up to a camp and there were warriors there and they were waiting for me. And it was after Standing Rock. So I kind of feel like there's a lot that all of us went through after Standing Rock, kind of just feeling lost and like, what do we do now? What now? But so I drove up to a camp where there was a lot of warriors. They all had this marking and they all were, it's almost like nobody knew what to do. And so I came up and I held up, my fists, both of them, because I got it on both sides, and it illuminated. And everybody else's started illuminating at the same time. And then in a later part of that dream, I was in a concentration camp. And so it was like a futuristic kind of dream. And the guards there was a long line of people who were all standing, and the guards were coming up with this device. And this device was like a mind control device where they would flash it at that person. And that person would just be subjugated. They would have the will to fight back. It's almost like they didn't even have to keep these people fenced in or gated into these concentration camps. It's through this device, they programmed them to just stay there. But when they came up to me, I held up my wrists, the Thunderbirds like this, and they illuminated and they became like a shield. And so their mind control device or whatever that thing was that they were flashing at me to try to subjugate me, it deterred it. It was shielded it completely. And so I've had several dreams like that where I get to see firsthand the power of our markings and how they can be protection markings, and the intentions that's put into them are very powerful and they work. And so that's something that I want to remind people. Of course, that's why one of the first things they tried to come and take from us was our protections, our shields, our power, our identity. And so part of the work that we have to do is to remind our people of these. It's not just markings. It's so much more. It's about returning to who we are, to our roots, to our ancestors, to the old ways. Because all the people who came here before, the colonizers, and they were very intimidated by our markings for a reason. Because they gave us a certain level of power and protection. And when you start to take that away from the people and you force the children to go into boarding schools and you wipe their memory clear and reprogram them and tell them that tattoos are taboo, tattoos aren't of creator, tattoos are to be looked down upon, there's something really disempowering about that, especially for our communities. And even when you go back further in the line, in the European lines, like the Balkans, were the indigenous people of Europe. And they had a traditional tattoo culture as well. And the women tattooed all over the face. And the women were actually the ones who held the tradition. So the women were the ones who created the designs and placed the designs. And when there's a book, written by John Lame Fire Deer. John Fire Deer. I'm having one of those days, very, very backwards, but it's something like that. And it's about one of his visions, and Seeker of Visions. That's what it's called. And in it, he's writing about receiving a tattoo from the 17th generation keeper of the white buffalo calf pipe of the Chanupa. She gave him a tattoo. So here we have another example of a woman who is a keeper of an ancient tradition of tattoos. And this tattoo that he received from her was secret, but it was designed to help him when he passed over into the afterworld to be able to pass through instead of being thrown to the earth to wander as a wanagi or a ghost. So we really have to have these discussions and open up the door to that there's so much more to our markings than just the look of it. And really, and for our own protection, for our own empowerment, and for our reconnection, this is something that we need to take seriously.
Well, and it's so true, because if you think about it, like my mom growing up, she never was against tattoos. She just always told me that if you are to get a tattoo, you better make sure it means something. And because she didn't know about the traditional tattoos yet at that point. it was lost in our family. And but she would always, but there was always this connection and this pull that she always had to tattoos, and she's an artist herself. So she's always like looking at people's tattoos and what is the meaning, and what is this design, and what is the symbolism behind this. And so she would always tell me and my brother, growing up, that if you're ever to get a tattoo, it better mean something, because that is something that you're going to leave with and that you're putting on your body. And she goes, it's your body's your temple, and you're marking your temple. And so if you go out there and you go get, she was saying this when I was in my party stages when I was younger. And she goes, so if you go out there and you go get drunk like all these other people do, and then you go get some marking, she goes, you never know what marking that's going to do to your body. You don't know what marking you're going to put on your temple that could destroy that temple. And so it's like that same thing that you're just saying. It's like you need to know what you're putting on your body and respect it. And even if you're non-indigenous, what's the symbolism behind that? What's the meaning behind that? Why are you putting that design on your body, or that marking? What's the symbolism behind it? Or is it just because, oh, I wanted to get a tattoo, and I was drunk and I was out with my guys and this is what I did, or with my girls or whatever. And then how many times do we hear about the cover-ups that happen because the person went and destroyed, tempered with their temple, and like put, like, if you want, almost like graffitied, instead of just putting like art and like a story, a part of your temple. They just like go and graffiti their temple, and then like don't even realize what they did. And then if you want to bring another part of it, then you watch something happen to their spirit change. People start looking at them differently because they have some certain thing. They start looking at themselves differently. I notice their spirit starts to shift and change in whatever that marking that they gave on their body. And so there's a whole spiritual shift that actually starts to shift when you're marking yourself with something that's not supposed to be there. And
But
I
on the
think that
other side, there's a spiritual shift that happens when you're marking yourself with something that should be there too, or something that really,
exactly.
really belongs to you.
Exactly. And that's the yin and yang. So, if there's something good over here, then there's obviously something, on the opposite, because we have to have that balance. And so it's the same thing on the other side. So, like when each time I had my tattoos put on me, I felt more empowered. I felt that empowerment. I felt that connection. I felt that deep rooted connection to my ancestors and to creator and to who I am. So there's no falter, almost, in that sense of knowing who I am, because these tattoos, these markings, it shows me who I am. I see who I am. I know who I am. I take honor in these markings. And so exactly, it's just like you said, there's there is going to be the yin and yang. And it reminds me of the tattoo you did, um this one here. uh that was the one that you were telling me that someone came to you prior and was telling you they wanted the tattoo, but you turned them away because you said, no, you don't, like, this marking isn't supposed to be with you. And then
Mm.
when I got back from Greece, because it was when I was in Greece, I kept seeing the symbol, and then I kept seeing it on my arm, and I kept seeing you sitting there with a hand poke. And it wasn't with a gun. I saw traditional hand poke happening, and I just saw it. And then all of a sudden I started seeing the design of this dance, and it was this eternal life dance, and it was like this never ending dance. And if you were to go look at it, it would have been a ceremony that would have happened, years. And but it's a universal one, so you'll see it all over around the world, and it's these markings of the everlasting life. And so it was interesting because when I came to you and you told me that, that's it, like what you were just saying just a while ago. It was like, if you want to talk about that and that experience, do you remember?
Um, my memory.
Little bit. Well, you,
But I have to, turn people away in that sense because, and I probably don't remember because that was probably just a message for you,
uh-huh.
like
That happens.
but yeah, I'm about that because I don't, sometimes people want to take on something that doesn't belong to them and that can bring, things to them that, you know, it's okay for people to not understand, and so I don't, but also people, um if you're taking on something that doesn't belong to you, you can definitely you have to pay for that. There's repercussions, there's consequences for that. And so I always encourage people to find things that belong to them or have something uniquely created for them, because that is the power of our markings. And I, as a tattoo artist, am not going to use my energy to place something on somebody that I don't believe belongs to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because something that I've learned through tattooing is that I have to, I don't know if every artist has this, tattoo artist has this experience, but I do through my art with the hand poke tattoo, is that I literally will take on people's energy. And at first, I didn't know. Like nobody told me. I had to find all this stuff out the hard way because, and particularly, I gave someone a tattoo and it was my original design. That was all good. I was like, yes, this belongs to him. But for 3 days after me placing his marking, I dreamt of his childhood for days, and I would wake up crying. I was so traumatized by what I had to see him go through. That was one of the really important lessons that I needed to have to teach me that, wow, this is extremely powerful exchange going on between myself and the person that I'm marking. So much so that I can take things from them, carry it, and then I have to release it. So I had to learn that I needed to really, and I did respect the art before, I just didn't know that was possible until it started happening. And so that's why I stress the importance of making sure that the marking that you're placing on you belongs to you, but also to be really cautious with the artists that you work with,
Mm-hmm.
because this is your energy, this is your body, and we're going to a deeper level, a physical and spiritual level when we're working with the tattoos. So you don't want someone working on you who isn't in alignment with your spirit and your ancestors, because as at the same rate that I could take things from him, it can go back the other way too,
Mm-hmm.
where things can be imparted onto the person that's being tattooed from that artist. So the energy is really should be in a protected space. It should be something that's very well thought out. Both the artist and the person receiving the marking need to protect themselves, put up their shields. The artist needs to go and release that energy afterwards. And this is just all stuff I had to learn from personal experience. three
Yeah.
days of waking up with nightmares of not even my own life, this person's life that I tattooed. And so, yeah, maybe if I had told that person, yes, come to me, even if it wasn't in alignment with my intuition that marking didn't belong to that person, what if I ignored that,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have to deal with that later, or that person has to deal with the consequences of that later. And it's real, it's
Mm-hmm.
real. And that's part of the thing that I want to work towards in this lifetime too, is that a lot of people will just go and get drunk or trashed and they'll go and get a tattoo. Oh, I'm
Right.
gonna go get a tattoo. And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is no, that's not that's not the way that it should be. It's an extremely sacred ceremony. It should be seen as a rite of passage. Every single marking is a rite of passage.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to do it in a way that honors yourself and that you have respect for yourself and you have respect for the artist. So yeah, I don't
It's
remember saying that to you, but
well, I remember it well, and it was like because it really stuck out, and I was like that because to me, I think I understand now the message behind that was that it was a confirmation that yes, Rachel, not everybody gets this design or this not design but this marking, and that the things that I was being told spiritually and connection and traditionally, that it just testified even more of what my ancestors were teaching me at that time and showing me. And so, and then not only that, just like what you were saying, um, because I understand the exchange that happens between a person, going into that ceremony, and then the tattoo artist, on that end of the ceremony. And I experienced this with an tattoo artist where, he was putting that bad medicine in me, or putting it in my brother, and I ended up having to cut cords from the back, because my brother has this eagle put on his back, and there was like these cords tied into the eyes so that my ex could spy and see me and
Mm.
see the surroundings and what was going on. And my brother kept seeing all these dreams and all these things happening, and felt like something was literally attached to his back, until I cut those cords, and then it stopped. And so I understand that exchange. And then going with, even just through my cancer healing, and going to different holistic healers, and working with different people of medicine, the medicine, um, I started to see that exchange even more, of being protective of your spirit, really looking at that person's path, and does that come in alignment with me, or is it, in a different alternative motive, in a sense, because I've had others where, they're using me in a sense for their own personal gain and their power, and alternative motive. So it's protecting that space in my spiritual space. Then I also absorb, and the empath. And so I feel everybody. So actually, so if I were getting a massage, I would actually absorb the person giving me the massage if they don't protect themselves, if they're not aware of their own emotional things, or what things that they may be going through, and say they're just having a really bad day, and they're just, all just negative in their head, and they're massaging into my body, I can feel everything that's going on in that person. So then now, instead of getting that relief for my own personal self, now I'm absorbing someone else's stuff, and then I have to go home and go do work to release what I just absorbed. And so it's that same sense with the tattoos. You're putting that energy in that exchange, and on both sides of it. And so that's like with you, I kept searching, like, okay, who's this person? Like, who's like doing this tattoo for me, this ceremony?
Mhm.
And then that's when I kept seeing your face. And then I kept getting told, you're going to your sister over here. She's going to help you. She's going to do this. She's the one that's in alignment to do this. And so I had to go on my own like spiritual conquest journey, just to find you, um, you know, and because you were the one in that alignment for this ceremony that I had to go through. So it's true what you're saying. I've been on both sides of um being with an artist, that has that bad medicine, and then being with you, with the good medicine, and the beautiful exchange that happens. But and then on the other side too, there was beautiful lessons and things that I learned from that too. So I'm not dismissing it. Everything happens for a reason, and I'm thankful for those lessons, even though it was hard. But they brought more awareness and knowledge, and understanding to things of what we're just talking about right now, of this exchange. If I hadn't, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't understand. Well, I would understand, but I wouldn't be able to speak from experience, um, and seeing that. And so, what you're saying, it's so true. You really need to do that research, and the prayer, to be guided to who's supposed to be helping you in that ceremony. And on the other side, they You know, I know you do, but others, you know, are you praying to, are you in alignment to put that marking on that person? And are you just going, okay, because it's money and you need money, so you're just going to go and give that person that marking, but then in the end, it's still, in a way, it's an exchange of bad medicine. So then, on the tattoo artist side, or the, you know, you're still dabbling with that bad medicine in a sense, because you're making that exchange for something, you know, with money in that sense. And so, you know, that we've seen that where it goes down to health issues and things that start occurring, that doctors end up not ever being able to find out what is wrong with you, because it's spiritual and it's something that somewhere along the lines, and it doesn't just have to be tattoos, it can apply to so many different things, you know, where you do something and then it comes, you know, that kind of that karma in a sense comes back on you, and now doctors can't figure things out. And so it's just it's interesting. But it's beautiful. It's a beautiful journey, to be able to see the yin and the yang, in a sense, that balance on good and evil, and how they actually play a role together.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy seeing that too. And I wanted to show a little bit, if there's people who's watching who are interested in this, in maybe resources where they can look into, find maybe a little bit more about their tattoo tradition. Well, this one is Northern Native Americans. It says Tattoo Traditions of Native North America. So
Mm.
Lars Krutak is the author, and he used to be the tattoo hunter. I think there was a television show on maybe on PBS or something called The Tattoo
Uh-huh.
Hunter. But what he did is he would go around and visit indigenous tribes, you know, around the world, and he would go and he would live with them for a while and learn about their traditions and meet with the elders. And after a while, the elders were willing to share with him. So in this book, there's a lot of the compilations of different tribes that he's gone and researched whatever he could find out about traditional tattoos of different tribes. So I'll just, for example, this is, here, let's try to find it, one where I can actually read some language. So this is a Haida, do you know where the Haida is North Native American. So
Oh, okay.
here's some traditional markings of Northern Native people, the Haida.
Oh.
Look at
Uh-huh.
the chest markings there.
Wow.
The marking is the woman. There's
Wow.
a little face there too. But
Yeah.
has a lot of that, whereas, you know, and that's part of the thing that we have to do as well was there are so many First Nations and Indigenous around the world that the markings on the face and the markings on the body, especially on the face, that for women. And the markings on the face denote responsibility, connections to ceremony, being a mother, even being married, in certain Northern California tribes. So here's an Inuit. I don't know if you'll be able to see this very well, but the Inuit are starting to revive their markings as well.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of grandmothers
Uh-huh.
having their cheeks and their face.
Yeah, through the cheeks, the forehead, and the chin.
So that's not the mono. This was the look here on this continent. This is the look here, and it wasn't just for aesthetic. It was definitely for a very deep purpose. Here she is. I'm gonna see what tribe she is. I think this is Alaska, Indigenous Alaskan too.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So for me, my markings aren't a traditional designs, but they're for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's another thing that I honor, is that yes, you can build upon the traditions that our ancestors left behind for us. Especially in my case, you know, Lakota and Dakota, we don't have a lot left behind to base our designs on. We
Mm-hmm.
are, and as I have the right to say, this is what is for me, this is what belongs to me, and this is what I want to do, and this is the message that I want to send, and what I want to place on my body. And so my markings on my chin tell my story. All the things that I've overcome in this life or accomplished, my children, my responsibility, my commitment to the earth, and my commitment to also just the tradition of tattooing. It's all in there. It's all written in there. These are to activate my throat, my voice, so that I can speak. My ancestors are welcome to use that to speak. And here, this is honoring a vision I had of these times. Actually, I had it probably when I was 25, so I'm 38 now. So it was a while ago, but back then things weren't as chaotic as they are now. But I remember having this dream where Star Nation come down, and there was a star man floating in front of me, and behind there was this spiral of stars going up into the universe as far as I could see. And he said to me that there's a time of chaos and confusion coming. And in this time, each and every one of us is going to have to find those people who love us and that we love in return, and to be with them at all costs, because that would be the only way to survive what we're going through now and what we're about to go through. So I placed that there as an honor marking, because the way I saw it is like, those are people that I come from, This feels like this is a relative. This is not just this is a relative coming to give me a message to help me through my life. And so I placed it there as an honoring, of the ancestors and that message that they imparted. And so when we're thinking about our traditions and our designs and the meanings of it, we want to use experiences like that, dreams that we have like that, visions, our identity, our accomplishments in life, and give impart those into our physical and spiritual bodies through the markings. So the whole ceremony, so when you go to an artist and you have that ceremony where you both are aware and you are both coming to it for that purpose, it is life-changing. And you do gain things through that, such as like through these shields, compasses, guides through life, rites of passage, where when you're going into the other world, is after you pass on, your relatives are going to be able to find you. And so each nation has their own understanding of it. But another thing that my elder taught me was that we also share, so like with us, the Lakotas and Dakotas, we've lost a lot of our history there. So it's okay to go to other nations and to receive teachings and to ask, how do you see it? And to take, what does resonate with you? Because when we lose that much history, sometimes we do have to go and be reminded by other nations of the traditions. So, for example, I went over to New Zealand and met with the Maori people, and they taught me a lot about even just how a marking on the chin, the lower jawbone, represents the woman's connection to the earth. So that's why the woman would have her chin marked. The position up here is the connection to the ancestors. So the placements and the head is considered the most sacred part of the body, which is why those markings would be received on the face, because it was such the most sacred part of the body. But so every single part of our body has a different energy field and a different purpose. And so when you mark it with the intention and you have all of that coming together, it's like a science, an art and science coming together to create synergizing to create something that wasn't there before.
I love it. I think we're going to leave it right there. Unless you have anything else to finish with. I mean, that was a beautiful message to kind of close this out with. I feel like I really enjoyed that. I did not know about the lower jawbone. I knew about, the head being the sacred and, here being open and connected, but I didn't realize the symbolism of the jawbone. So like I love learning. So that's what I love about these podcasts, is that I get to learn something new every time I do it. But I appreciate you coming on and talking about this, because I know we talked a while ago that, you wanted to share your message a couple years ago, but just wasn't time yet for people to receive that message and the knowledge and things. But here we are, and so I I hope to see many people learn from this and to have a better understanding of, traditions and of the ceremonies of tattoos, and um, you know, do that research, do the spiritual research. That's what I had to do for myself, because a lot of that knowledge and things was lost from my family too, and my tribe, the Shoshone. And so I have to work even harder to go on that spiritual journey to connect with my ancestors, to have that knowledge and those things. And so um you know if you don't have those resources, to go and find and things, your resources, universe, it's your ancestors and creator through prayer, and going through that self journey to reconnect with that. And like with me, I've had some, of my own family try to tell me that, oh no, like we never did this and such, but they didn't get to receive these visions and teachings from our ancestors. I was humble, I'm humbled and, and honored to have, my ancestors come to me and teach me these markings and these older ancient ways that we had that were lost. But stay true to your ancestors, stay true to that knowledge, and what you hold in your heart. And it doesn't matter what the outside world says or thinks, if that's in alignment with you and creator and your ancestors, and you know it and it's been shown to you, then that's all you need to know. You don't need, in a sense, this permission from the outside world that doesn't really understand, and it's been lost themselves too. So, honor, respect others, and the other thing too is that if there are others out there, it's not to put you down about your tattoos or anything. This is just knowledge and things from our understanding and our point of view, and experience and things traditionally that we've both received the knowledge of. And so it's not to put anybody down or anything. It's just more of that awareness, and just be aware of what you're putting on your body. Be aware that, these things do have power and meaning behind it, and it's not just skin deep. So I'll
Mhm.
just leave that with you. Honor yourself, respect your temple, and love. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.